Bilbao.
Sebastian.
Sebastian, welcome. Welcome, Sebastian. Let's start with the round, the weekly question. So, Ivy, you want to start? Weekend plans?
Okay. I actually don't. I've made plans with the new friends I met here in Boracay, but my mom is in the hospital because of COVID. So I don't know if I will still push through with my plans or because I have to call them, coordinate with them, and yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what my plans will be this weekend. So yeah.
Okay, I hope she recovers soon and just gets back home.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, you can pass it to Juan.
I am going to my parents' house. That's like the lockdown plan, and I will spend the weekend there. And yeah, my best wishes for soon recovery. I will pass to Sean.
The same thoughts. I hope your mom recovers nice and easily. For this weekend, I don't think we're leaving town, so I think we'll stay in LA and get some time to hang out with the kid, and that's pretty much it. Back to you, Santi.
Thank you, Sean. Not too many plans for the weekend. I'll try to get on the bike, relax a little bit, work on some NFTs projects, and that's about it. What about you, Sebastian?
Weekend plans, hang out with the son, move spring cleaning, and I'm just joining because I'm very interested. I want to know what the legal track is up to. I'm looking at this thing called private membership associations in the US and see if there's overlap in what the work you guys are doing. I'm in Toronto. I'm in Canada.
Great, welcome, and we are happy to have you here and get your insights. It's always gonna be helpful. What about you, Griff? Welcome. Plans for the weekend?
Well, it won't be nearly as fun as last weekend where I got to see Sean. Well, that's not true. It will be almost as it will be almost. I will be hanging out with my girlfriend in San Francisco. We're gonna go have like a date day tomorrow. We haven't Lorelai. Many of you know Lorelai. I haven't seen her. We've been hanging out this week again, finally, but I haven't had like a full date day. Really, we kind of had like Wednesday night. We took some time, but tomorrow will be like a full day couples retreat. And then back to the grind. I mean, honestly, I really want to take the lessons we learned from the MVV and token log and apply that to the Hatcher params, because it's time like we can actually I saw Nate and Craig in person and we did Hatcher params. I got them both to propose some Hatch params, and that's going to be my mission this weekend.
Yeah, you're meeting someone every other day, man.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
All right. Perfect. All right. The purpose of the call today is just to dig a little bit deeper into the proposal terms. I was reviewing. I won't be able to be on the call this afternoon. I was reviewing the issues with TAM this morning, and we checked the hatching terms, and there's the missing parameters. So once we have those chosen, we have to remember to put them on the document and get finalized. All right. So you wanna lead, Sean?
You're still muted.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I'm on my iPad, so I don't know if I can share the document. Santi, can you?
Can you share the document, Griff? Thank you. I'm on a public cafe here, and I don't think my connection is probably not the best one.
Which document exactly?
If you open up the agenda, the link for the proposal terms is there. Oh, hello, Libby. Welcome.
Hello.
We just had a short discussion because there's this comment on the legal text channel from Letty mentioning that the terms for the forum seem to be outdated. Do you know who posted those terms?
Let me get to this agenda and see what is the...
No, it's not in the agenda. Well, I posted the I mentioned it on the agenda, but if you go on in the text channel for legal in Discord, you should see the comment from her. Just wanted to jump into that real quick to make sure that we have that updated, or if we need to update it.
Where is it?
I just have no clue. I don't know where she read that. I just saw the comment right away. I've never posted anything on the forum. That's why I was asking.
Oh, she said TE legal regulation channel. So maybe she saw in the
It might be DE, not the columns. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, this is beautiful terms of service though. Look at all that.
Okay.
Oh, this must be the default.
It might be the default.
Yeah. No wonder it's so deep. I was like, geez, I don't remember us taking that on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she mentioned. She mentions that it seems a copy paste and.
Oh, and she posted that in the forum too?
Yeah, no, she posted it here on the legal text channel. We may have to take it apart.
Who needs
Yeah, I also don't remember us doing that.
Well, anyway, let's jump into the proposal terms, and we can just take a look at that, Libby, later on, or next week, and see if we can update those terms or get rid of those and work on new ones if they don't have any sense at all.
Griff, can you click? Perfect. Thank you, Griff. And then just scroll down a little bit.
So just
last week.
Mm-hmm.
So last week we talked about changing our suggestion discussion here, and Libby mentioned telling community members that suggestions should be moved over to the forums or Discord to be discussed. Obviously, we still have to keep the abstain proposal. When I describe the abstain proposal here, I just want to make sure I'm correct. I highlighted it because I just wanted to make sure I'm correctly describing it, that people are locking up TEC. Thank you, staking is a better word. And therefore raising the level of support needed for any pending proposal to pass.
Yep.
So scroll down a little bit, please, Griff. And then going into the proposals, last week we talked about looking at the covenant that One Hive uses. So here the community pledge is basically our version of it, which obviously is
I like it.
Influenced by the One Hive's version. I edited it a little bit to the extent that I thought necessary, and then highlighted a couple areas where I wasn't sure if we're dealing with the same issues that One Hive is. But basically what it does is it says, look, obviously everyone here is trying to build a better future, but I just want to make sure that, obviously TEC is a digital currency, but issued and distributed programmatically. I think that's vague enough that it's accurate, but I just wanted to highlight it in case that's not the most accurate or I don't know, clever way to describe it. And
I would say that this community pledge will need to be voted on almost, or it will need to be approved by the TEC Hatch DAO. And I don't know if we'll use the same MVV process or what, but we'll need to do something similar where, we have like some iterations on this community pledge.
That's fine. And then what we basically do is talk about on-chain management. Obviously, I think I accurately describe how Celeste works here. That they would have to stake TEC when submitting a proposal. And that's my assumption, although we haven't yet, I think, really dug in on exactly what parameters are going to govern when someone makes a proposal. Like what fees are going to be attached to it. But my assumption is if someone has to stake TEC or XDAI or whatever token it is they'll have to do in order to invoke Celeste dispute resolution, my assumption is, well, probably the person making the proposal has to do the same thing as well.
Even Celeste has to be voted on still.
Yeah, I mean, this whole section is going to have to be a proposal. So I guess it may not be able to be voted on until Celeste is voted on. Because if Celeste is voted down, then obviously the section on the dispute resolution doesn't make sense. Although the rest of the document, the rest of the community pledge might. And then it's just what I think is hopefully an accurate description of how Celeste works. Participants in the alternative dispute resolution protocol, they review the proposal, the covenant, the related past disputes, and then they provide a judgment. I'm pretty sure Celeste is a subjective oracle, not an objective oracle. But if the proposal wins, then it's unlocked and the staked amount goes to the proposer. On the other hand, if the dispute is upheld, then again, I don't know if this has to be true, but if you have to stake in order to make a proposal, then that money, those tokens would have to go to the person who won the dispute. And then OneHive has a paragraph on off-chain enforcement, which is basically look, there really is nothing formal off-chain to enforce anything other than, kind of reputational harm. And so I used a pretty similar paragraph here. If we want, we might just want to, at the top of this pledge graph, just add a note saying if it's going to have to be voted on, before it could be added to the proposal terms. I don't know. I don't know the best way to describe that.
Do we want to make a distinction if the proposal is launched by anyone outside the community or a member of the community, or should we just treat them the same? Because in case there is an issue, if it's not a member of the community, there's nothing we can do.
Or at least for the proposals with Celeste, I would be pretty surprised if we didn't have Celeste, but for sure it's possible, especially if Celeste has problems in the next month. But they will have to create a proposal. They will have to check these terms, and they'll have to put down a deposit. Is that relevant to what you're saying?
I wasn't thinking on Celeste specifically. I was thinking on someone posting a proposal to get a grant, and then we have an issue and we bring the issue to Celeste. Should we treat different if it's someone from the community posting the proposal and being chased through Celeste, or should we treat them exactly the same way if they are outside of the community? Or I'm thinking on the consequences. As Sean said, if it's someone outside the community, there's nothing we can do off chain. But if it's someone on the community, there could be something we could do if we want to concerning the community. Like, I don't know, we cannot kick them out, we cannot steal the tokens from them, but we could somehow, I don't know if we want to, but if we could ban their voting, or I don't know if we want to do that, but I'm just bringing to the table.
So there is the C-stack tokens. So if someone has C-stack tokens and they're playing games, then they could lose their C-stack tokens. But technically, doesn't have anything to do with the TEC.
But that is included in the graduated sanctions. So it's like a possibility, but we don't have like a step by step or a clear path or on how is it going to be applied this sanction.
We may have to consider that just together with gravity sanctions and see what we want to include there.
I think a flagging system could be helpful. I think awareness is always a good approach rather than like trying to enforce something that it's not enforceable because it's soft gov. So maybe just having some type of flagging system when something has been disputed, or like how long a person is a member of the community, or I don't know, some things to signal trust.
Yeah, I'm not discussing the way to manage. I think flagging is perfect, but I'm just bringing into the table if we want to make a distinction between members of the community that are regularly dealing in the community with decisions and voting, or members outside of the community, which they are completely out of our control.
I mean, there's some non-rule based ways in which that's dealt with to begin with, right? Because if someone outside the community makes a proposal, either they're going into Discord and engaging the community beforehand, or they're not, in which case I don't think that helps their chances of having a proposal pass. And then two, with Celeste, I think that same situation kind of arises again, where if someone from outside the community makes a proposal and that proposal is not good, if it's a great proposal, then there's really no problem. If an outside, if a non-common community member, makes a really good proposal, everyone's ecstatic about that. But if it's a malicious proposal or something that's sort of, unbecoming the community, then Celeste is really there to kind of handle that situation. And presumably over the course of the, I'm going to call it ADR, alternative dispute resolution, as part of the ADR, then that should be handled. Optically, I don't think I love the idea of creating a rule saying if you are a new member to the community or an unfamiliar member of the community, that you need twice the level of support in order to get a proposal passed. Whereas, Santi's been a member for a year, therefore, if he makes a proposal, the threshold is lower. Just optically, I just think new members may not love the way that looks because it just looks like insiders have more control. Although I know I can make the case that actually it's the other way, and that it shows that community members are, treated well in the community. I get that, but I just think optically I don't love it. And since you have Celeste there to deal with bad proposals, that's where I would probably put my, my stock.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any distinction too of like new community members or old community members. And I think I imagine Celeste would actually be used more for like trusted community members rather than random people that join. Because when someone random joins and proposes something ridiculous, it's very easy for that to be like put aside. Like a comment in the forum Like all of the reputation of the people that are seeing that and don't agree would create a very easy like soft gov like solution, I think. But then if it is something crazy coming from a trusted community member, then I think it would be important to use the last, because opinions would start to diverge. Trust would be like it's a deeper issue then.
There is some precedence in the Swiss federal government structure where private citizens can bring legislation proposals to the government, and they require a few thousand signatures, but not like overwhelmingly amount of signatures. And that seems to be an equal, like a way to mitigate legislation, private citizens, and they can pass. Actually, citizens can actually get laws through. It's an interesting approach.
Yeah, that's the proposition rules in California, where if you gather the signatures and kind of go through the effort, you can amend the state constitution that way.
Yep. At a federal level. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Switzerland does something on the national level that's very similar. I mean, I think it's a really interesting idea if it were to be a problem. And I think it can be dealt with in the event that there is any malicious proposal that comes in from a non-community member that passes, right? Because if they don't pass, it's not an issue. That if these malicious proposals pass or start passing, that you then in theory could try to make a proposal that changes the parameters and affects either how much you have to stake in order to make a proposal, to make new members pay more in order to make a proposal, or that this level of support necessary to pass has to be higher. I don't know how exactly you figure that out in terms of programming it, but I assume that those are ways that could be dealt with. I don't think, unless it's a problem, I don't think it needs to be dealt with now, unless I'm way off base.
No,
Let's move forward. We can deal with this.
Question about Celeste. So proposals can be disputed until how long after they pass?
well, basically, there's an execution delay that's on our side, so it's part of the parameters of the vote.
How long is that, Griff? You have like a week to object to a proposal? Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
Our economy, our choice.
I mean, obviously, while a proposal exists, like before it even passes, I presume you should be able to say, hey, look, this is not a good proposal. Like, why wait for it to pass before having to, start the dispute? But then how long after it passes should people have?
So, like, let's imagine voting period. The voting duration is 5 days.
Right.
If the proposal has a change in vote near the end, then there'll be an added period. Like if the results change at the end of the voting duration, then there's actually added time at the end.
Okay.
So that controversial decisions have more voters have the opportunity to weigh in. And then there's an execution delay at the end of that. That's usually more like a day or 2 days. And that's so that if people disagree, they can exit through the bonding curve before it passes. And then it executes. Once it's executed, I mean, we can't stop it. But I believe at any time during that process, there can be a Celeste like intervention.
What I think is that there should be like a mixed approach, and like all the time before going to Celeste, there should be this alternative dispute resolution process where, well, in the gravity type form, you can flag a proposal, and our criteria or the criteria that we have said, like to intervene or to approach a proposal, if it receives more than 3 flaggings. So if 3 members of the community flag a proposal with through the gravity type form, any graviton can approach the proposer to say like, hey, some people is flagging your proposal. This is what we think, or this is what they think that can make your proposal better. And all that in parallel of the Celeste application. Seeing it like an scaling process. If the person does not like receive well the communication given from the group of gravitons or from the community, then we move to Celeste. But the idea of this is to only take to Celeste the things that are only solvable through Celeste, and that the things that can be solved through dialogue or through other methods can be solved that way.
It's worth mentioning there has been a dispute already through One Hive, but it was just like a troll. Not even a troll. It was someone in the community just being like, "Yo, give me money, try this," and then let's dispute this. I mean, they're and I mean the first step is like it doesn't go to Celeste. Someone disputes it and puts up some money, and then the person who put the deposit down has to then bring it to Celeste. So like, most of the time it just someone disputes it and they're like, oops, okay, I'll fix that. And in this dispute, you can either say, listen, give me the deposit and go away because you're being malicious. Or you can say, hey, in this dispute, you can keep your deposit, but you can't propose. You need to fix your proposal. And so then the person can withdraw and keep their deposit. So that option exists as a polite, like, oh, hey, you forgot to post in the forum, you can get your deposit back, but we're not going to vote on this.
I thought that was a test dispute. I thought it wasn't real. Was it real?
I mean, it was real as in like they put real money at stake and honey jurors got paid.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a community member playing with it, no evil intent.
I'm really intrigued by the Celeste judges and the idea of being a Celeste judge. I'm fascinated by it, and I'm already like, I think I got some honey just so I can, when it gets ready to go, to just do it and try it and see what it looks like, because it just seems so like it's such an interesting way to solve disputes that involve people. Because a lot of this stuff I've never thought, oh, you can just solve it on chain or by looking at the code. That's not, when you're looking at, is a proposal a good idea or a bad idea, or is something getting, proposed correctly? That's subjective, and you're going to need people to make decisions on that. We just can't necessarily do that, looking at code. So I'm really interested to see systems of dispute resolution that have people involved, and how do you get them to stay involved? How do you get them to engage? How do you get them to pay attention? And what information are they allowed or not allowed to look at? I can't wait to do it. I think it's very exciting.
Sean, are we done with the proposal from this week?
Yeah, I think so. I think what I'll move on to now is, there's a couple more sections still to be filled out in those proposals. But that's what I'll move on to this week, and start filling in more stuff.
Perfect. I just wanted to bring to the table the review that we agreed to go over on the praise distribution. Did you have a chance to check those? Can we consider that?
I think we're looking good on the praise distribution, Santi. I think I had made the changes that you were talking about, but let's take a look.
Mm-hmm.
because in my notes, the things I had to go back and change, I'm relatively sure I went back and changed. Because I think one of the big things that we had talked about was, oh, look, what if there are other tokens that end up
Right.
getting distributed? So at the end of the second paragraph is one of those issues that the community may decide to use additional tokens or replace the IHT with another token that at present will operate under the same disclaimer as discussed herein. So I think I got that covered. And then the other thing that we needed to do in here, Greg, can you slow down just a little bit? And that we needed to, Juan Carlos went in and added the gravity section on it. And I looked at it and I thought it read fine. And so I think this is in terms of what we needed to get through on this document. I think we're there. You can always spend more time on a document and go through it again, but I think we addressed the major issues that we needed to get out of it.
Okay, great. Then we can just leave it as a finished document, and we can always come back if we need to, or if anyone brings it to the discussion. Great. I don't know if there's any other discussions here from any one of the members. It'd be great. We have some time. If Sebastian you can introduce yourself and just to the rest of the team.
Yes. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been following exactly detailedly what you guys are doing, but the legal aspect of this is more in terms of how to pair it to legal, real-world legal aspects of how the footprint of a DAO or any of these structures has implications on real commerce and real statutes and legal geographies and what's like. I've seen MakerDAO they have done some stuff where they have an actual I call it a business established in New York City, so it has actually a foundational legal entity, but then it has a DAO, and how would you actually link those two? So those are questions that I'm like pondering, how to connect a DAO with real world entities and the legal structure that you would need to and the geographies that get involved. So it gets geographies, statutes, the DAO, and how would that also, there's no mirror of a DAO in legal business structures. That because you don't know, the legal business entities are very strict and they're not malleable as a DAO. So I'm just trying to see if that's in the conversation, or those are questions that I have that I'm trying to figure out.
I like to treat DAOs as like extra jurisdiction. It's just in a different jurisdiction that you have no control of, right? So it's like some Swiss association.
Correct.
And you're in the States, and there's a Swiss association and there's members, and they have whatever. So okay.
Yeah.
Apply.
The Swiss has the most freely, the most legal legislation to associate yourself, so it has no restrictions. But like MakerDAO or one of these one of the ones that are making T-shirts, and they actually incorporated in New York State. So now they had a DAO and they had a business association, and I'm not sure how they actually mix the two.
Is MakerDAO somehow funding that entity?
No, it was not MakerDAO. It was like a Meta Factory. It was one of the guys who makes merchandise. I don't know what they do. So they actually have a real world business entity and the DAO. And for me, I'm really curious to see how would that happen. And I understand that it's geographically difficult because the laws change every 100 miles. So it's mind-boggling to see, because eventually there should be some connection to real world economies, not just have everything, well, it's we don't exist. That's all.
Thank you.
Sean, you looked like you had things to say.
because it's because I wish there was a good answer. I wish there was something that was even reproaching. It's such a good question. It's deserving of a good answer, and there isn't one. Because the answer so far is we don't know. Like we don't know what it looks like. We know a state in America is doing the first sort of legalizing of the formation of DAOs. So we have an actual state in Wyoming saying, hey, look, you can actually form a DAO legally and go through it in a process that seems much easier and cleaner than your other options have been up to this point. But it's literally just passed. I mean, it's like literally like in the last 30 days passed. So
Then
we
this,
don't know. We don't know how that's going to work. We don't know how like legal and DAO don't exactly mesh that well because you don't record legal calls in the real world. You don't. And you might have legal counsel around to give a speech here and there or presentation on something, but you would never have advice given to you as a company and then recorded for the world to see. That gets rid of privilege, which is like the cornerstone of the legal world. So I don't know how that works. But at the same time, DAOs look like homeowner associations to me,
yeah,
or
private
sporting
membership,
club organizations. Yeah,
private
which
membership
is
associations. That's the one that's
exactly.
closest.
Yeah. So here in LA, there's a large British expat community. So there's like 3 or 4 like dart communities where
Mm.
like people go to around to these bars and play darts, and have been for like 70 years in LA.
And like for example,
And they have like
the bar association of lawyers is similar to a bar thing. It's not defined. It's basically a constitutional association that has no.
exactly.
It's like we're lawyers. We throw darts too.
Yeah. And so it's DAOs look like those organizations because it's committed community members dealing with sort of, intensely unique situations to what they're dealing with. Except it's writ large, where you're trying to do this over the course of like, anyone in the world can access it and interact with it and potentially, participate in it. And that's really unique. So in some ways, it looks really familiar. We're like, yeah, it's a small club getting together and trying to figure out how do you have a community with 30 common people and other people who may come and go. But there's 30 core people that'll be there in and out. And at the same time, if you're looking at some of these larger DAOs, to the extent that they're actually decentralized, and most of them aren't, they're huge, and everyone in the world interacts with them. And you're right, the laws change every 100 miles. So how do you tell people how to behave in an organization where what one person might propose is completely legal, but for someone else that would be just unacceptable, and they would get in trouble? I don't know. I don't know.
And sorry, Juan, do you want to go?
Well, yeah, I was like, for me, it's super interesting because I am a political scientist, and this is actually like my passion, like this area of this gray space. And what the way I see it is like states have 4 elements, and that are a nation, that it's like a human aspect, has a government that is an institutional aspect, has a geography that, yeah, it's like a spatial aspect, and has a sentiment that is like yeah, a feeling of sense of belonging. And the only thing that DAOs lack in this is like the spatial reference, because they can have a sense of belonging, a government, and a human aspect, and a human. So I see DAOs as potential, or like, of like decentralized states. And but I really like the way block science is framing it in some of its latest like articles, because they talk about system between DAOs. So yeah, for me it's like super interesting, all this, like especially this gray area that we are talking about.
I think it's essential for actually making it into real economy too. There's also the Nevada passed or is passing legislation where if you could have this autonomous governing geography, like you could actually, if you bring in enough investment, you could actually have your own country inside of Nevada state. And there's one blockchain company that's doing that. They're building this blockchain city, which allows them to have full governance above state law, I think, not federal, but somewhere they can actually have weird laws in there that's a bit scary at the same time. But yeah, it's a federation of feudal states, I guess, what you were describing, Juanca.
I think it's interesting to hear, oh, the real world, or like, then what we're doing is not real. I think there is this like referring to the law or the state as things that are so established that they're real, and the more like digital ethereal space as something that has not like got that badge of realness yet. And I think it's as we are shaping these new structures, we are creating like another system that might not ever comply to the system that was there before. And it doesn't mean that it's not real because of that, because it's creating something else. And I don't understand nothing about legal, but I feel like until we're not illegal, like until there's nothing saying like DAOs are illegal, I don't think we should care about it. Like it feels like there is enough enough space to mitigate things when they are in this like non-verbal space.
Olivia, I
The
think that's a
burn.
great way to describe it. Like I think when people like me say, oh, there's the real world and then there's what we're doing, it's not, I mean, obviously I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it's a good idea or worth engaging in, but there is a sort of, I have precedence for things. And when there's precedence for things, it's easier for me to say, well, that is real because that has structure to it. And I may not be able to predict exactly, but if you gave me 100 predictions, I'm probably going to be right more often than wrong on how situations turn out. And in the DAO space, there's so little precedent. There's so little things to look back on and go, well, this worked and this didn't, and this was found to be compliant with the judicial systems around it. And these weren't, such that I can predict with some regularity, this version's going to be okay and this one's not. There's nothing here. And you're right, what you're doing is creating it from scratch. And I think you're right. The general view probably should be, until you're told no, that it's not correct, go give it a shot and see what you can create, and you might break a few eggs, but that's how you make omelets. And I completely agree, but it's certainly not an idea of like, when I say something's real versus not real, that something's worthy and not worthy. That's not the distinction I'm making. Real to me is just, I have some predictive ability with it, and less real is we're out in like non-gravity areas and we're floating around and making the best decisions we can, and hopefully they work out. But that's what you're doing. You have nothing to kind of anchor to and go, well, we know that generally speaking this is an okay decision to make and people aren't going to get in trouble, because at the end of the day, Juan Carlos's definition of sort of what a state is, I would add a fifth element, which is they can punish in a way that is considered legal. Whereas I can't, generally speaking, go out and punish someone that does me wrong, short of like self-defense. But if someone does me wrong, I have to go to the state to get quote unquote justice. And that's true in both criminal aspects and civil aspects. And so because the state has the ability to punish people, either through criminal or civil ways, I do think that we have to be mindful of it in some ways and not go too far out in terms of like what we do. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about a DAO that could conceivably operate over the course of 6 continents, that's a lot of potential jurisdictions you're interacting with, and a lot of ways to get in trouble. And that's why I'm always kind of thinking like, well, I don't know how to tell people. One, I can't be a lawyer for stuff that happens in Canada. I'm not licensed to. Like, I'm literally told I'm not supposed to give advice about that, and I'll get in trouble. And I can't even do it for other states. I can do it for California, and federal law. And then everything else, I can't tell you. I can give you my best advice, and that's it. And so because the state has the ability to do sort of like legalized violence, it's just something we always have to be mindful of, because everyone's kind of trying to navigate through there and end up on the side where the government gives you the thumbs up and says, yeah, you're fine. We may not like that, but that's the way it is.
So I think what Livia is saying is that we're crossing a threshold where governments are definitely kind of like no longer functional or capable of doing what we need to do as a global economy. The real part of the economy is that there's goods and services that need to be distributed, and hopefully merge this technology to the real economy. That's what I call real economy, is like goods and services. And those have real life, how you call it, conditions that, safety conditions and all these things, which are basically what Cesar was saying about, you can buy something that kills you. There's all these implications, and that's where it gets very geographical and very friction based of legal aspects of the real economy, which is you buy something that kills you, then and the DAO is international and there's no presence. What happens? So at some point, these two things have to merge, and it's going to be a headache, and it probably means that the government has to be overhauled. The legal structures that we have are no longer capable of a global economy.
Yeah, not even of local economies. Like even the punishment wound, I think, is the main thing we're gonna have to face in the long terms of DAOs and alternative governance things, because like we are like deeply inserted in a punishment and reward system, and it feels very like hard to even imagine what would be a system that didn't rely on punishment and reward for incentives. And I feel like the punishment is the bigger part that it's very hard to look at, and that's what we are like trying to like start to tap on with the graduated sanctions or something, or like building a culture of like forgiveness and reintegration and things like that, because this is the scary part of the state, exactly what you said, this like permissioned violence, that because of fear we tend to act in a way or another to comply with the structures. But if we start to produce alternatives to how to solve these complex problems without violence, or how to solve these complex problems without relying on the punishment of the state. And this is what is going to prove the legitimacy of the governance mechanisms we are creating, of like not relying completely on punishment and reward, but creating other types of even space for motivation and
other types of
yeah,
other types of punishment. Just kidding.
Yeah, I don't think like this is a big word, you know.
I mean,
like
there has to be accountability to what you're providing. Like if Meta Factory sells a T-shirt that kills you, and they don't have a legal entity, what happens?
But like alcohol kills you, and you can buy in any corner. Like there's so
No,
many.
yeah, there's exceptions and all those things, but the actual things that if you wanted to have some kind of traction, there's going to be that accountability that needs to be. That's why the state is there, because there's a vacuum. So they say, okay, we'll do it, and then we'll punish, and it's all these things that we've historically left on the side, and it's become a monster that we cannot grab anymore. So yes, it's a nightmare. But how would a DAO be accountable for something that causes a failure without having to go through the punishment? So like, okay, the DAO killed something through a product. What is the DAO going to do? How you get recourse?
I feel it's going to disappear. Like the society will, like if like the good thing about us is like they are super transparent. At least I feel this way, and I feel like if someone is doing something wrong, like the space, it's going to go against them.
Yeah, exactly. And there's more accountability because there's not the monopoly on force, and there's an economic factor, right? Where there's a token that has value because people believe it has value. And if the DAO all of a sudden is not providing value for society, or at least a small group of people that give it value, then the price will go down. So there's this extra accountability layer for the economic system.
Solved.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, the magic is that, and this is the common stack dream, right? Is that we can create economies that compete to provide public services, as opposed to having to rely on a monopoly government to provide public services and create that kind of value.
I gotta run. Thank you so much. It was a good conversation.
Thanks for joining. Good to have you. Thank you.
I'll be joining. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone wants to bring anything else here, or we can call it for the meeting? No. All right. Great progress today. We ended up with the distribution proposal, and we've moved forward with the proposal terms, and hopefully we should be ending in a couple of weeks. I hope we can end it in this next spring, which would be great. All right.
Yeah, great work, guys. Great work, Sean.
Okay. Thank you. See you all next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.